Okay, we're live on YouTube and we can play it, Doc.
Hashtag Bangon Pilipinas. Blackwater would like to support our heroes of the front line who are risking their health and well-being to attend to COVID-19 patients. We aim to provide the frontliners of the Pasig City General Hospital hygiene kits which they can use daily. Blackwater, smell good, feel good. This webinar series is brought to you by Hoop Coaches International in cooperation with Blackwater. Smell good, feel good. This coaching webinar series would like to give special thanks to the following. Samahang Got Skills head coach Alan Ricardo and frontliner Christopher Top Huyano.
All right. Good evening, coaches. Good evening, attendees. Again, thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank again Doc Teddy, our resident sports psychologist, who's been joining us in this webinar series. Again, we're so fortunate to have a coach all the way from Belgium and to share his knowledge on the game. He's a professional coach with experience in the highest level in Belgium, in Netherlands, France, Luxembourg, and was a coaching staff with the St. Joseph's Hawks in the NCAA Division One. So he's also very an expert in advanced analytics and a PhD in mathematics, skilled speaker, and of course clinics like this, and has been invited to numerous continents to share his knowledge. So and also is an analyst for the Belgian TV. Again, would like to welcome and we would like to thank in advance Coach Pascal Meurs. Good afternoon to you and good evening to us, Coach.
Well, thank you, Ariel, and thank you, Teddy, first of all, for the invitation. I think you guys are doing an amazing job for all coaches worldwide because due to the virus, of course, everybody has a lot of time and it's the perfect timing to study the game of basketball. And well, once again, thanks for the invitation. Like for today, I prepared like a presentation. So I will start sharing my screen if everything goes well. And
yeah,
actually, the thing I want to talk about today is about practice design. And I will share some lessons that video games taught me. And before you think that I'm some kind of addicted to video games, actually it's not the case. But I do look around and I do look what kids love and what they are interested in. And not only are those important lessons for kids, but also for professional players at the professional level. First of all, maybe 2 words about myself. So you nailed it. I'm a Belgian professional basketball coach. I started out in women's basketball in my own country. I coached in France, in Holland, and right now in Luxembourg. Last year, I had the opportunity to coach for 6 months in Spain at Valencia Basketball at an academy, Euro Pro Basket. And it's one of the things I will also mention and share some ideas about. Because on top of those things, I think I've been very lucky to be able to travel a lot, to watch basketball worldwide, and also to learn from basketball worldwide. And whenever, Coach Ariel, when you send me your invitation, you got my attention right away. And do you know why? Because actually, I already heard a lot about the Philippines and about the basketball culture in the Philippines, to be more exactly. And actually, what I've been told is that you have a great culture and that people are completely crazy about basketball, that it is the most popular sports in basketball. So I hope that one day I will have the chance to visit your country, and I'm crazy about basketball too, so that must be a great match. Then I think we could get along very fine.
Yeah, hopefully we can have you here in the country, Coach.
Yeah, with pleasure. Enough about me. I'm not here to talk about myself, but actually, when I was preparing for this webinar, actually, I was reflecting a lot. And right here in Europe, this picture, I think we all recognize it a bit, in the sense that sometimes we as coaches, we are a bit frustrated that kids, that they don't play outside as much anymore as we did in the past. That kids, that they don't go and play street ball, that they don't take their daily shots for hours and hours like we did when we were young. That kids on practice, that they have a very short attention span. But on the other hand, if you watch them at their home playing video games, then you see completely the opposite. Then you see a kid that can keep their attention for hours and hours. Then you really have to drag them to the table to come and eat. And they keep finding the same game over and over, very interesting, very attractive. And actually, that thought, it made me thinking. And actually, I want to share today some of the lessons I taught from those video games, because I think that we as basketball coaches, we can learn a lot from those video games. And I don't think the kids or our players are the problem. Maybe the problem is our practices. And maybe we have to make sure that our practices are a bit more like those video games, because I think there are a couple of points which are spot on when you would analyze why those video games are so attractive. And then I do think it is very, very important to underline that the ideas I will share with you today, they're not just aimed for kids. Because let's be honest, if we work at the professional level with pro athletes, we're still working with young adults. And for them, it's exactly the same thing. And it is important, and I do want to stress it, that the ideas, the drills, the concepts I want to share today, I use them for my professional players, but I also use them for kids, for under 12, under 10. And I think there are a lot of similarities when it comes down to keeping the attention from the players and creating an attractive practice. And actually, when I do so, then I think about my own life. I told you already, I've never been that addictive to video games, but when I was young, I think there was one popular game. It was called Super Mario Bros. I'm not sure if it is in one way familiar in the Philippines, if you know this game. And actually, it's not that important, because I will share the most important things. And today's game, which rocks every record in the video gaming business, that's called Fortnite. And I never played it, but believe me, I have some friends and their kids, they're crazy about Fortnite. It's the only thing they speak about. They go completely wild. And my main point of today is that maybe our practices, maybe they're designed a little bit like Super Mario Bros. 30 years ago, and maybe we should design them a little bit more like Fortnite is today. And then I think we can construct an attractive practice. And what you see here, that is that game of 30 years ago. It's called Super Mario Bros. It's with the little guy, he's called Mario, and he has to catch coins. He has to catch the mushrooms. He has to avoid some bombs, I think. And this is what we would play back in the days, but never as much as kids do Fortnite today, because as you can imagine, it's a bit less attractive. But I think that our practices, that often that they look a lot like these games. What do I mean then? If I look to this game, I do think it is very repetitive. It's always the same thing, because you have to know when you play this game, probably the video you see right here, it's level 1 of Super Mario. But whenever you would shut down your computer and next time you would start it all over again, you have to start at level 1. And now you have to imagine that you're a kid, you're a basketball player who is perfectly able to do level 1. Then it is very boring. Every practice after practice, again, go to level 1. Because if you play this a couple of times, you know exactly at which spot, at which time that mushroom, that bomb is coming. And back in the days, you had kids who could play this level 1 with their eyes closed because they knew exactly what was coming. Because the surroundings in the game, they're exactly the same every single time. And on top of that, there's very little or no decision making. You only have to figure out first how to avoid that bomb and how to catch that mushroom. But once you cracked that puzzle, you can play it for ages, and that's a skill you have. And then it doesn't matter if you play that same game over and over and over again, the challenge will be every time the same. And if you can crack the puzzle, you can crack the puzzle. And there is one very famous drill which reminds me right away of this Super Mario game. And it's called the classic 11-man drill. And I think we all did it. And I know that a lot of coaches are still using it today. And I do want to avoid hurting their feelings, but I'm not sure if I will manage to do so. Just for everybody, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, this is what I would call the classic 11-man drill. So it's a 3-on-2 transition drill, full court. And what is for me the problem with it? It is exactly this situation. So you see here the 3 players in offense, the ball is in the middle, and then of course you have the 2 defenders. It's 3-on-2 full court. But my biggest problem with this is that it is not game-like. Because I think most of us and most of the listeners at home, they used to play basketball. And I want you to reflect for 1 second, how many times in your playing career did it happen that you were on a 3-man break and there were 2 defenders waiting for you, facing you, and one above the other? What I would call a tandem defense. That's my first problem. It never, ever happens during the game. I cannot say that it happened 5 times to me in my whole playing career. That's one thing. The second thing is, some coaches, they treat this as their only way to practice transition basketball. If they weren't very successful in their transition game, in their fast break game on Saturday's game, then next Tuesday on their practice, they would do this drill for a very long time. And then they would be very frustrated if next week's game, the transition, the fast break, the finishing in open court isn't any better. But for me, that doesn't relate because this is not game-like. This for me is the same as a certain level in Super Mario. Because every single time you see the same puzzle, you see 2 players, one above the other, and this is the puzzle you have to crack. And actually, for youngsters in the beginning, it can be hard. But if you as a coach, you explain how to do the drill, that maybe it is first with a pass and then a cut from the guy from the middle to have that second defender make a choice between 2 players, then you know how to crack the puzzle and to have a decent shot or layup every single time you have this possession. But from that moment on, you would do the same drill over and over and over and over again. And then my question is it that attractive for players to crack the same puzzle over and over again? To me, that sounds as playing Super Mario level 1 over and over again. And on top of that, I'm not that sure if this drill will help my game on Saturday. And that goes for under 12 teams, but it also goes for the professional level. And that's for me is a big problem. And then now I want to introduce you to the opposite. This game is called Fortnite. I do have to admit that I never played it, but like my nephew, he explained me everything about it. And actually, what is Fortnite? I can explain it very, very easily. Fortnite is a game which you play with 100 players. And actually, you play live through an internet connection. So we have 100 players worldwide who are connected, and they are dropped all at once on the same island. And then, of course, they have a number of weapons, and they have to kill each other. And sometimes they have to build and look for things, and it can be very complicated. But the bottom line is, you are dropped with 100 players on an island, and whoever is the last one to survive wins the game. The idea is simple, right? But actually, this is genius. Because if you compare this to Super Mario, by the design of the game, you will never, ever have twice the same game, or you will never, ever have to crack the same puzzle, the same problem twice. Why? Because you have 99 other different players. And every time you start up this game, you will have 99 different players who will make different decisions. So even when you would play Fortnite day and night, and you would play it for months, days in a row, then you would never, ever play twice the same game. And that, for me, that relates a lot to basketball. Because in my eyes, basketball, it's maybe the most complex sports in the world. And we can, as coaches, we can dream of preparing our players for all possible scenarios and situations on the court, but it's impossible. Because whenever you step on the court, you have 9 different players, which each one of them will do something different in every possession. So for me, it's impossible to mimic, to practice all those situations. So the only thing we can do is prepare our players in the best possible way to take the best decisions during the game. And on top of that, finishing my story about Fortnite, when you see this game, it's very realistic. And that's also a point for our practice drills. I think they have to be game-like. If we want to spend some valuable practice time on certain drills, then we have to make sure that those drills, that they relate and that they're similar as what our players are facing in the games. And maybe there is one more funny thing about Fortnite. Every once in a while, and I think it's every couple of weeks, Fortnite worldwide, they have a press release and they announce that on a certain day at 12 o'clock, they will make a new world available. And a new world, what does it mean? It means a completely different island. It will look completely different. And believe me, I know 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds that are begging, crying their parents, please, today at 12, download that new world, because when I come back from school at 3:30, I want to play the newest version of Fortnite, and I want to download that new world. And I think it's more or less the same during our practices. When in our practices, I think we need a lot of new variations. And sometimes for our players on the pro level, on the kids level, we need them to download a new world. Everything has to look differently. It has to be refreshing. It has to be new. I think it's very important for our attention span. And of course, it's easy to give some critics on the classic 11-man drill and to tell you fancy stories about a game called Fortnite. But of course, the main question is, how can I do it? How can I make sure that my practice, that it is a little bit more like Fortnite, that it is more attractive to kids, that for a longer time, I have their attention span. And that will be the main topic of my webinar today. And when we start out, maybe let's try to look if we can have that classic 11-man drill, if we can improve it. Because I don't think we have to reinvent the hot water. I think with a couple of adjustments, we can improve it a lot. So what I will show you right here, it's from a clinic I gave in Valencia in Spain, where actually I showed a better version of that 11-man drill. And it is still a full court drill where we will go 3-on-2. I will play the video with the sound and let's continue afterwards. It's only 1 minute.
Is there sounds supposed to be sounds, Coach? We can hear you talk here. Coach, there's no volume. Coach?
Yes.
There's no volume.
Okay. Then I will do the explanation.
All right. Okay.
That's fine. Well, actually, then let me go back to this situation.
Okay.
So actually, the drill, it started out exactly the same thing as the classic 3-on-2.
Okay.
Having 3 players in the middle and they would attack 2 players, but it's only once. It's the very first possession of the drill. And after this possession, we make one simple rule. When those 3 players play an offense, then you have one guy that takes the shots and you have 2 not shooters. And those 2 players that didn't take the shot, they have to sprint back. And who are the new players in offense? It is this guy on the sideline, it's the guy on the opposite sideline, and it is the guy in the middle behind the baseline right here. Those are the 3 new players in offense. Who's playing defense? It's 2 of these guys, and I want them to be the 2 guys that didn't take the last shot. All the rest stays on this side. One goes out here, one goes behind the baseline, and one steps out here. And what you have done right here, so they will play. 2 teammates, they will sprint back. And here you have the 3 new players in offense. And what you have here is that those 2 defenders, they are game-like. And the classical 11-man drill, they were waiting for you in the middle of the paint and they would form a tandem, one behind the other. But here you have 2 defenders that are sprinting back live, like it happens during the game. During the game, when I run a 3-man break, I have guys sprinting in the middle, defenders sprinting back. And by the design of this drill, you will have sometimes that those players that they have the lead, that they have the advantage. Sometimes they will be sleepy and they were waving to mommy after their basket and they will be late. That's fine, because that's exactly what happens during the game too. So here you will see the next possession. It's 3-on-2. And the same thing will happen. These 2 players, they sprint back. And now you see here that they are late. But that's exactly what happens during the game. Sometimes they're ahead, sometimes they will be late. And please do me one favor, don't look at the execution in this drill. It was during a clinic in Valencia with players that I saw for the very first time. But transforming our classic 11-man drill to this drill, it's already a huge difference. Because right here, by design, it is game-like, and by design, it's every single time, it is a slightly different situation. Because those 2 defenders, I will not send them. It's not like next to the sideline, we're talking about video games, so it's not that I have a joystick that I can control where those two defenders are. They will take decisions which are sometimes out of my hands, just as it will be during the game. And that's exactly what I want. And I want to go a bit further. Actually, I think I have a very large network of coaches with whom I talk to on all levels, pro, professional level, kids, whatever, amateur, all those things. And I don't know about you guys, but when I talk to coaches, they always complain to me about the lack of practice time. Always. Yeah, now here I made it a little bit funny, like I did a survey. To be honest, I didn't. But actually, this is a situation I face. Every basketball coach I talk to, they explain to me that they have that they don't have enough practice time, and that goes for coaches on the grassroots level that maybe have 2 practices a week and a game. But it also goes for professional coaches at the highest level with 10 practices a week. They say the same thing. We don't have enough time on court with my players. Actually, and my invitation for today is maybe we should have a critical look at what we spend our practice time to. And actually, the first invitation for reflection is the following. At the same time I'm speaking, I will show you this video and I explain you what it is. This is images from the EuroLeague Final Four from last year. It's the semifinals between CSKA Moscow and Real Madrid. And what you see here is a very detailed analysis of every single finish at the rim from that game. You will see it in slow motion with highlighted, offhand, right hand, left hand, 1 step, 2 steps, whatever. But actually, I made this analysis for one major reason. And the big reason is I wanted to count how many regular layups you would have in this game. And the answer is just 1. And what do I mean with a regular layup? Then I mean a right-left steps on the right side with a right finish and a left-right with a left-handed finish on the left side. During 40 minutes of basketball, there is 1 regular layup. And all the rest are floaters, scoop layups, 1-step layup, finish with the offhand, off leg, Euro steps, runners, everything, but only 1 regular layup. And to all those coaches that complain about the lack of practice time, you should ask yourself, how much of your practice time do you spend on regular layups? I see so many practices that start by definition with layup lines. That's before the game, that's at the beginning of every practice. In some organization, one or the other, we have 2 lines, we pass, and we make a layup. Or we dribble and we make a regular layup. And then on the side, we have a coach that is really stressing the fact for sure at the kids that they have to finish with the left hand on the left side, and a layup has to be regular. But then I ask myself the question, why do we spend so much time on that skill? Because it barely happens during the game. Only 1 time in 40 minutes of basketball. And if we are a team that has 2 practices a week and a warm-up, then maybe 3 times, 10, 15 minutes, we are using regular layup lines, and it never ever happens during the game. And that's crazy. If I see this video with all the finishes, and here you see a slow motion of Sergio Llull, well, then I think we have to work more on those finishes. And whenever you analyze those finishes, you will see that every single time there is a decision maker making, because all of those layups, it is well thought of which hand to use and which foot to use. What does it depend on? It's the defense. It is whatever gives you, the defense gives you, you try to have a counter move to still finish at the rim. It's not that those players that they think at the 3-point line, oh, now I'm gonna go inside and this time let's mix it up. I'll finish with my left scoop layup. No, it happens on the spot, whatever the defense gives them. And then I think all that time that we normally spend on regular layup lines till we can make 100 in a row before we move on to the next thing on practice, then maybe we should work on decision making in our finishes at the rim. And I will show you a couple of examples on how to do it. Because once again, it would be very easy of me to tell you whatever I don't like and to criticize certain things, but I do want to offer you some alternatives today. And let's start off with what is probably my favorite drill. And I call it the DANILOVIC cut, which was a famous player in Europe in the 90s. Actually, the drill is very simple, and I will show you a short video too. So here on the left wing, here is the coach with a ball. And on the opposite wing, you have a player in offense and a player in defense next to each other behind the 3-point line. And whenever the coach blows his whistle, this player in offense, he cuts to the basket. And the coach will throw in the ball. And he has to try to finish that layup, but he cannot dribble. He cannot make a jump stop. He cannot, it's like, it's the final 0.5 seconds of the game. Whenever you catch the ball, you have to try to finish that layup. However, and that defender, he is live right away. So he can try to intercept the pass. He can try to be in between. He can try to block the shot. So this player in offense, he has to be very creative on how he can finish that layup. And I will show it to you in action. These are images from a clinic I gave last year in Lithuania. Also here, please don't look to the execution of the players. This, of course, was also very new to them and the very first time in their life that they did this drill. So you see here, so this actually is not allowed. They cannot make a jump stop. On their way to the basket, they have to finish their layup. And whenever you do this, you will see that those players, that they make crazy layups to avoid the defense. And of course, it's unnecessary to tell you that we do this drill from different positions on the court. And also, very important to mention too is, before you think that I cannot give a decent pass, I want to mix it up. I want to give bounce passes. I want to give lob passes. No look, I just throw it in there and I ask my players to try to finish that layup. Because I think that's what happens during the game. How many times does it happen during a game that a guy off ball is cutting to the basket and he gets thrown a bad pass and still he has to try to finish that layup? That for me is way more game-like than doing those regular layups, which will happen maybe once in a game. And to prove you that it is game-like, I have here a situation from a EuroLeague game. It's Fenerbahce playing an offense. And they execute here what I call a DANILOVIC cut. And actually, it starts from a horns play. And what happens often in a horns is that the defense from the corner guy, that he is sleeping. So you see it right here. in the corner, you have a guy from Fenerbahce. He's an offense, but his defender is sleeping. And that means that whenever the point guard is coming over the screen, he will try to cut in front of his defender. He gets thrown the pass, and he will try to finish that layup. And that's exactly the situation we were doing in this drill. And that's also the reason why I call it a DANILOVIC cut. And like this, I can give you many examples, like 10 different drills. And maybe it is a bit like Fortnite. I won't do them every practice, but every once in a while, I will download a new world to the players. And actually, every time we're doing exactly the same thing. We try to finish at the rim in traffic with contact, but from a different situation. And I'll show you another example. Right here, we have a player in defense, which is in black, and a player in offense who is behind them. Both players, they're facing the basket, and the player in offense, he keeps the ball in the back of the defender. And it's upon the player in offense to decide when to start. At a certain moment, he will pass his defender on the left side or on the right side, and he will attack the basket. For the defense, whenever he doesn't feel the ball in his back anymore, he can play live defense. Or live, it looks like this. Player in offense is second. Player in defense is up front. Offense keeps the ball in the back of the defender, and at a certain moment, he will attack the basket. And what you see here is that those finishes at the rim, that they are way more challenging than regular layup lines, where for kids, it is very hard to keep their attention. And of course, right here, also in the drill, I'm giving a coaching clinic there. So I'm not talking about how to do, what to do, but I'm just showing and explaining you right here the design of the drill. Whenever you do this, of course, you have to talk about the explosive first step. You have to talk about keeping an advantage. And what I like to do in those type of drills is, first of all, don't teach too much. Just give the players a situation and let them try several times. Let them run into that wall. Let them be blocked a couple of times in a row. And then they see that they lack certain skills. Then they see that maybe instead of just having a regular layup, they also need a left hand, and they also need a floater. And whenever we're still working without defense, without decision making, you as a coach, you can go crazy on using the left hand, using different finishes, and so on, protecting the ball, don't show the ball to the defense. All those things that we yell and complain about every single drill 1-on-0. Does it help? With some players, yes. But very often I think, what the hell are we doing? Why the hell am I wasting my time? Because it doesn't seem to have any effect. Well, in this drill, it does have an effect. Because when a player gets blocked time after time, then they realize, then they want to compete, then they want to become better, and then they realize they need different finishes. And also one reason to let them try first, as start with that game approach with a competitive approach, it's also, they will have to come up with finishes. Maybe it's not always upon us to, from scratch, to show something and let them mimic it. Let them find also their own style. Let them be creative. Let them come up with a different layup. I really think that if it is a skill that they discover, if I can call it like that, if they can discover it by their own, it's way more effective and it will last way longer than only skills from us, which we try them to mimic. Another example, it's quite similar. So we have the player in offense here with the ball. Face to face, you have a player in defense. And me as a coach, I'm behind the player in offense. And at a certain point, I will stick out my hand. And the player in defense has to give me a high five in my hands. And whenever he does so, the offense can attack. So this is mimicking the situation that you're face to face with your player in defense. And at a certain point, the defender is out of balance because he reaches for the ball, which in this drill is giving me a high five. So for the player in offense, it is reading that situation and of course attacking the other side and try to keep the advantage and try to finish that layup. Another one. It's
Dr. Meurs.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes,
actually,
please.
a couple. My question is, when you run a specific drill, how many times do you go through it? Like, how many chances does a player have to run like the specific, like the drill that you just showed us? 3 times, or until they reach they get the point of the drill, then you move on to the next one. My second question is, how long would a practice be for you? Thank you.
Okay. The first question, how many times how many repetitions within one drill? Here you need your feeling of a coach. Like when I prepare my practices, sometimes I define that I will use a certain drill 15 minutes, but after 8 minutes, I do see that either the execution isn't well, either the intensity isn't there, and then I just adapt and I move on. It is very, very important that you try to read that situation. And whenever you stop a drill after a small amount of time, you can do it over the next day. That's not a big issue. When I look to my own practices, and it also has to do with your second questions, I prefer to have shorter practices with a very high intensity. And that's one of the things I picked up in college, like you mentioned in my introduction. I really like to keep a certain intensity and a certain flow in my practices. Yes, I have water breaks, like we have timeouts during the game, but they are short. And whatever we do it right away with a game-like intensity. So I prefer to have a practice from 1 hour 15, where we really keep up the pace and where we work very intensive, than a practice of 3 hours where we are talking a lot, where we stop everything, where we talk and talk and talk, and where the players are not more sweaty than in that short practice. So for me, practices, normally I speak about a practice between 1 hour 15 and 1 hour 30. That's for me ideal. Coming back once more on the number of repetitions, what is very important is that we give our players the chance to make mistakes. So we do have to make sure that they have enough tries, that they have enough possessions, because that's also what you see in the video games. For example, Fortnite, like it is a worldwide phenomenon. If I am dropped with 99 other players on an island and I get killed after 30 seconds, so be it. I start a new game and I start it right away. That also means that the gap for mistakes is very low. Kids, when they want to survive till the last survivor on that island, you have to take risks. speaking among adults, you could mention the quote, whenever you want to do great things, you have to leave your comfort zone. And that's true for every one of the drills I show you right here. If you want to score, if you want to be the best, then you have to go out your comfort zone. If you just stick to the regular layup you already know since a 10-year-old, you will never be the best. At best, once in a while you will score, but you won't be the best finisher in traffic. If you want to win this drill, you have to leave your comfort zone. You have to try different things. And in one way, actually, then I'm encouraging you to make mistakes. And that's very important. Teddy, I hope that was an answer to your question.
Thank you, Dr. Meurs. It did.
Yes, so let me continue. One more drill, I think, on the finishing at the rim, and then we will move on in my presentation. Right here, I will work on playing on the catch. This is me as a coach with my arms wide. I have the ball in one hand. Offense, defense starts behind the baseline. Player in offense catches the ball out of my hands and will attack the basket. Defense has to give a high five in my other hand. Or live, it will look like this. Offense takes the ball out of my hand and attacks from there. Of course, what I want to reach from this situation is that this player in offense, whenever he takes the ball from my hand, he has a small advantage because that defender still has to reach for my other hand. And what I want to encourage in this drill is attack right away. Don't go here in a triple threat and it's way too slow. Catch the ball, and on the catch, we attack the basket. And of course, we see here, whenever you enter in the paint, gain or keep your advantage and try to finish that layup, which is way more game-like than in just the layup lines. And so actually, I was inviting all of us to reflect on the things we do on practice, because we all like practice time, and the layup lines, that's one key thing for us. Do I think that we shouldn't do it at all? No, that's not what I said. Yes, we have to do layup lines, and yes, we have to teach players first to do a regular layup, but maybe we're overdoing it with our layup lines, and we keep playing the same level, cracking the same puzzle of a regular layup. There's another example I want to mention to you. It's the three-man weave. I think it's familiar in the Philippines too, because of course it is worldwide. I see it a lot on practice, three-man weave, full court on practice. And I also see it before the game, in the game warm-up. And I think we all know this drill. And I see many teams do it before games. It's a three-man weave till half court, and we come back 2-on-1. And like you see right here with the kids, I cannot say that I'm a big fan of the intensity right here. And basically, I've seen this drill on all different levels, pro level, kids, grassroots, whatever. For me, it's never a very good drill. And when I ask coaches, Coach, why would you do the three-man weave? Actually, I haven't met anyone yet that can give me a good answer. Because the three-man weave, you have to think about it for 1 second. You're giving a pass to the side of the court, and as a reaction, you follow the ball and you run towards that player. What will happen if you are coaching a kids team and the other team is pressing you full court? You give a pass to the side, and the player that gave the pass follows his ball to ask the ball back. Then I'm sure that you as a coach, you will go crazy. and you will blame him for messing up the spacing, and we have to create space, and you have to create space for somebody else. But then that kid is just doing what he has been doing on practice all week long in the three-man weave. Give a pass and follow the ball. And that's one of the reasons why I think, oh, that's what we're doing all week long, but actually it doesn't fit our basketball philosophy. Because when I'm running a press break and my guy gives a pass, I want them to create space. Then I think we have to redefine our drills. And when I ask coaches, why would you do the three-man weave? Then the best thing they come up with is, yeah, it's a good conditioning drill, or yeah, it's a good warm-up drill. Then I always start thinking like, this is the only way we can do it, which is definitely not the case. And for example, for this warm-up drill before the game, where we only have half of the court and we still want to do some 2-on-1 actions, also here, I think to have a good alternative. And it's again, I will show the video from my clinic in Valencia last season. And actually, this is what you can do before the game. So you have 3 lines out of bounds. So you have it here at the bucket line behind the baseline. You have a line, free throw line extended, and you have a line at half court. What we'll do is pass, pass back, pass, pass back. And this player will cross the court to half court. And the player that started on half court will run free throw line extended. And from here on, the 2 players in their orange shirt, they are the player in offense. And the guy that was in the middle, he will sprint back to play defense. You will see it live right now. And what you see is that before the game, this is a drill where everybody is sprinting. And since we only have half of the court before a game, we are using every single inch of that half court. Here you see that the players don't execute it very well because they really have to sprint towards the sidelines. But we use the whole court. And on top of that, this fits way better my basketball philosophy. Because when I'm running the fast break or secondary break with my team, the ball is on the side of the court. And like you see right here, the kid with the ball in a game that could be my point guard, which is pushing the ball. And the guy he has to pass to, well, that's my wing player that is filling the lanes in fast break during my break. Me as a defender in the middle of the court, that's also game-like. Like we said in the beginning of the clinic, like in a game, we have defenders live sprinting back in the middle of the court. Like we have it right here. What do I expect from the player with the ball? From my wing, if he receives it, attack right away. Force the defender into a decision. If the lane is open, keep going and continue to make your layup, unless the defense completely commits to you, and then you give a pass. With this situation, for me, it's way more game-like. And on top of that, it's very, or it is easier to control the intensity. And this drill, this is what I do to have a game-like situation before the start of the game. And I did this kit with this drill with under 12 kids, but I also do it at the pro level. Because for me, it fits what I need a couple of minutes before the start of the game. So my basic message for today is maybe we should all look to add a little bit of Fortnite to our practices. And what I try to explain to you up till now is that there are 2 major ways to do it. First of all, when I design my practices, I use a couple of reference drills. And the reference drills, one example is, for example, the 3-on-2 full court drill. That's one example. And why do I use reference drills? Well, actually, that's because it also helps the flow of your practice. I already explained that I do want to have a very high intensity on practice. Then it helps if once in a while you can call out the name of a drill and all the players in the gym, they know what we're doing. That helps. And what is very important to me in that reference drill is that it gives us a different situation by design. It is game-like, just like Fortnite is game-like, is real life-like. Every single time, it gives me a different decision because the position of those two defenders, they're sprinting back live. It is by design very different. So nothing else is needed. That's one way to add a little bit of Fortnite to your practices. And the second way to do it is, like in Fortnite, once in a while, download a new world. Well, the best example is all the drills I showed you with finishing with contact. Like the one-on-one drills, I think I shared like 5 of them with you. That's actually all 5 of them, we work or we focus on the same thing. Finish with contact, in traffic, game-like. But for the players, the whole setting is completely different. So we also have to vary with the drills we do. And like I showed you 5 of them, if you go to a practice board and you prepare your practice, you can invent 10 of them, 20 of them. And I do think it is very important that once in a while that we mix up our drills and that we offer our players something different to keep it attractive. And like I told you, last season, I had the luck to work in Valencia. And I do want to share you a couple of ideas with it, which also has to do with the practice design. But first of all, there's one story I do want to share with you. And actually it has more to do with the lessons I learned there off court. Like Spain, for me, it has the best program, the best basketball program in the worldwide world. I'm already a big fan of it since close to 15 years ago. I think already back then, I traveled to Spain to watch 1 week of practices on all different levels. So you can imagine how delighted I was last year to work there at Valencia. But whenever in Europe, when we try to do something else or when we compare things with Spain, then people always right away tell me, "Yeah, coach, but that's Spain. That's different. They have a different basketball culture." Yeah, of course, I completely agree. But it doesn't come for granted. And I really think that on all levels, whoever is working in basketball, we can add to that basketball culture. And I'm going to give you one example. And for me, it's a very heartwarming story, which is nice in these times of a Corona crisis. Well, I want to tell you a story about Valencia basketball. It's of course, it's one of the biggest clubs in Spain. They compete in the EuroLeague this season. They really focus a lot on their own youth. And of course, they have probably the best youth facilities of Europe with l'Alquería del Basket. But they also do a lot of effort to add to those facilities. And not all of them, they have to cost a lot of money. And there is one idea which I will definitely pick up for the future. They have an idea that within their youth facilities, they created a wall. And in Spanish, they call it a mur del somni. But actually, in English, we would say a wall of dreams. And on that wall, you see a couple of pictures right here. you all have players that made it to the first team. Now, what happened during my time there, you had a guy, a kid, a GM, that I think the rule is that he has to play at least 3 or 4 years for the youth program of Valencia Basket. And when then he plays his first minutes in the ACB for Valencia Basketball, his name is added for eternity to the Wall of Dreams. And I'm so in love with that story. And whenever they add that name to the wall, they make a whole event about it. Like you see right here in the upper picture, this is Guillem. Whenever he had his name on the wall, all kids of the whole club, hundreds and hundreds, they were invited for that event. They were all giving high fives to Guillem. They made a team picture with all the youth coaches that ever worked with Guillem. And that's exactly what you want to create, because those youth coaches, like in Spain, no, they're not paid crazy money, but they are the best youth coaches in the world. But why do they spend all of their time into basketball? It is to be part of something special. It is to be on that picture with that youth player that makes it to the EuroLeague. And that all adds to the basketball culture. Like you see on the pic right here, you have hundreds of kids giving high fives to Guillem. They all wear the same shirt. And actually in Valencia Basketball, like a 6-year-old kid that plays in the club wears exactly the same shirt as the EuroLeague team. The coach of the EuroLeague team wears exactly the same shirt as the coach of the under-18. And that's what I completely love about it. And I do think that too often we say, yeah, but that's Spain and they have a culture and we can't do it. I think it's the result of lots of years of hard work. And I do think that on all levels, we can try to create something that comes near such a culture. But like I told you, that's like a story completely off court. There's another thing I picked up from Spain. What you see right here, these are images from an under-14 tournament. And in Spain, they call it the Mini Copa Endesa. But like you see here in the video, they have like mascots, they have a speaker, they have a sold-out gym that is going completely crazy about an under-14 game. And I was there at that tournament. For the final, there was a waiting line of 2 hours to get into the gym for an under-14 game. And I completely love it. That's part of the culture. But on top of that, I want to show you one possession out of this game. So what you see right here, that's an under-14 game in Spain. And of course, they will play a lot of full court. You see a game between Badalona and Murcia. But here at the end, you will see it. It has to do with the rules and what I completely love about it. So I have to go back a little bit more. So here, the ball goes out of bounds. The referee calls it. But look what happens right now. Now it is red ball, but the referee doesn't have to touch the ball. And I love the rule. Whenever a ball is going out of bounds on the sidelines or whatsoever, the referee will call it, but the players, they can go on. They can pick up the ball as fast as they can to use the advantage. Is the defense, aren't they set yet? Are they still complaining to the ref for a non-call or whatever in a discussion? That's too bad for them, but they keep on playing. And I'm not sure, don't tell me that in the Philippines, that's also in the basketball rules. right here in Belgium, for my own country, I can say that we don't do it this way. I saw it in Spain and I completely love it. And I'll explain you why. Because actually what you create here is making players to think about the next step and to think one step ahead. Whenever they estimate that a ball will go out of bounds, they will sprint after it and they will keep playing. Because how many times aren't we discussing about smart players are the players that look one step ahead? How do you create it? Well, it's by this rule. And it makes sure that the intensity of the game is way faster. Like they always think about the next step. And for the same reason, what I like to do once in a while on practice is play 3-on-3 according to the FIBA rules. And I think 3-on-3 in the Philippines is very popular, so I don't have to explain it. But of course, then also everybody knows that the FIBA 3-on-3, in those rules, the ball is never dead. After a basket, defense takes the ball and they keep playing. Maybe it's pass back, and they can score right away. Or they use that advantage. There is no time after a basket to wave to mommy, to celebrate with your teammates the nice dunk or the nice shot you made. You immediately have to think about the next possession. And that's what I love about it. And it's also one way to keep the intensity of practice. And on top of that, you work on thinking one step ahead. The following concept is exactly the same thing. I call it Nets game. And it is something where every coach has to think about for 1 second. Every drill you do half court, you can add this rule. And this rule means that whenever there is a basket, the player that grabs it out of the net can play an offense again. So it doesn't matter whether you're playing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. Whenever we are playing, if there is a basket, the team that grabs it out of the net can play an offense again. And I do expect that in the Philippines, it's the same thing. Everybody wants to play an offense, right? So everybody with this Nets game will go till the finish, till they grab that ball. And you don't want to know for how many years on all different levels, I was always stressing the fact, oh, you have to finish the play in offense by going to the offensive board, or in defense, it means, oh, finish the possession by boxing out, grab the rebound. It doesn't always have a lot of success because players, they tend not to finish their action. But by adding this rule, everybody goes for crazy for that ball. In offense, after their shot, they will follow their ball and they will go for the offensive board because they want to play an offense again. And in defense, believe me, they will box out because if they don't, they will never play an offense in this drill. And that makes it very interesting for me.
They're incentivized.
Excuse me?
They're incentivized.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe one more idea. One more. I think in basketball, it's also very important to have a dynamic start. What do I mean with it? If we go 3-on-3, for me, it doesn't work if we have 3 players in offense around the 3-point line, 3 players in defense are waiting face to face. We give the ball to the offense and we say, okay, let's play. That's what I would call a static start. For me, it doesn't work because in such a drill, never ever in that possession will I have the good intensity. So I think in everything we do, we need to have a dynamic start. And I'm gonna give you one example. For example, if we would be working on our defensive rotations, then maybe I would start with a drill you already know from the beginning of my webinar. With me being the coach here, one ball, player in offense, player in defense, and offense grabs the ball. The other one is live in defense right away. And we just add one or two players in offense. And we add a defender right here. And here on the left side, the drill starts in exactly the same way. Offense will catch the ball. They will have an advantage. They will attack right away. And defense, he needs the help of his teammate. So X1, they will have to do the rotation. And whether you do this 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, 3-on-2, whatever, here you can teach and practice your defensive rotations without the fact that you have to start static, where you're gonna ask your defender here on the left wing, well, when he starts dribbling, please let him beat you. That's what happens a lot, which I don't like, because in the rest of the possession, you will never have the right intensity. So we should start live right away. But still, we want to start off from that example. Well, you can use one of the drills I showed to you in the beginning of the webinar to have that advantage by design. But if I'm talking to X1 right here, he's going live right away. He will have the disadvantage, but we go live right away from the beginning of the drill. And like this, you create a dynamic start. And in these types of drills, for me, it is way easier to have a high intensity, which for me, for our practices, is really crucial. Yes, maybe I want to start finishing up the content or the presentation I prepared, and then I'm open to any questions. But first of all, I do want to highlight the fact that the drills I shared with you today, that I didn't invent them. Like this quote, it says it all. One can steal ideas, but no one can steal execution and passion. Like this morning when I woke up very, very early, my colleague from Australia, Coach André Lemaes, was giving his presentation on the flow offense. It's not because he shares with me the flow offense that I will win a bronze medal on the World Cup. Like, I'm a big believer that in basketball, there are no secrets. Like, if you go to YouTube, if you go to the resources that are available today, you find anything. You find the playbook of the World Cup winner, you will find video playbook, you will find so many great resources with all different kinds of drills. And of course, your great platform, what you are doing right now for the coaches in the Philippines, it's one example. It's a great resource. But coaches have to realize that it's not enough. The drill won't make you a great coach, or the play won't make you a great coach, or it won't make you win. It is what you do with the drill, how you implement it, which drill you choose or which play you choose for your personnel, and how you make it fit within your own basketball philosophy. And like I told in the beginning of my story, I think I had the luck to be able to travel a lot and to go and learn, study, speak about basketball worldwide. And everywhere I went, I picked up different kinds of drills, ideas, which I adjusted, which I changed a little bit, which I changed within my basketball philosophy. And for the drills I showed today, for example, these names, Yurik Michiels, Alex Sarama, Joe Riley, Jean-Luc Cornia, And all the coaches I met at Valencia Basketball, they were for sure in one way or the other an inspiration for the content I showed to you today. And maybe one more thing, like I told you, basketball isn't about secrets. I do think it is very important that as coaches worldwide, we should all be on the same page, and we should all strive for growing the game. I think that's a responsibility for all coaches worldwide. And I don't believe in keeping my secrets. I'm a coach that likes to share ideas about basketball. That's also why some years ago I started my own basketball blog, which you see the address, the URL right here. It's my full name.com. And every 2 weeks I send out a newsletter, and to all listeners of the webinar, please feel free to go and check out my content. Everything is for free there. And if you want, sign up for my newsletter and I will keep you posted about my new content. And on top of that, because it's the webinar and because I really like the initiative by Ariel and Teddy, whoever signs up right now because of the webinar, I will send you my free ebook, which is called How to Win More by Playing Slower, which is also actually an introduction to basketball analytics. Like you told it in the beginning of my webinar, I do have a background as a PhD in mathematics. So I also have a big love for analytics in basketball. And within that booklet, I give like a short introduction to it. So please feel free to sign up. Coaches, do we have any questions?
Dr. Meurs, we have a couple of questions. Our first question is, who are your role models in coaching and why?
Ooh, I have a couple. If I have to mention one single, then it is David Blatt. Why? I had the luck to meet him a couple of times in person, to watch a couple of his practices and games. And one of the things I really like about him is his energy, how he treats his players, how he manages his players, and how his energy from the sideline, how he can translate it to the team on the court. On top of that, Ettore Messina, of course, Brad Stevens in the NBA. Those are all such great basketball minds, I think. And those are for sure role models for me.
The next question is, Dr. Meurs, what is your philosophy on discipline?
Well, of course, managing your players, it's a huge thing. And of course, when we talk about discipline, first of all, we have to define very well to which it applies. I think discipline is one of those things that can vary very hard from country to country. I can imagine that in Asia, we have a different style than in Europe, for example. And of course, we have to wonder, are we working with kids? Are we working on the pro level? Or are we working on the grassroots level? I think that's very important. But to be honest, it's not my style to be a policeman, and I don't want to call back and punish players too often. What I try to do is I really try to ignite my players, motivate them, and explain them what our goal is, and all have them on the same page. In one way or the other, you could say, I do want to have them all on the same page, working towards the same goal. And if everybody wants that bad enough, you don't need a lot of discipline, because then everybody knows that whatever we are doing, it is to reach our goal all together as a team.
Well, we have another question, Dr. Meurs, from Chin. Coach, can you talk about warm-ups before training? Thank you.
Well, I think I already revealed quite a bit about my warm-ups. Like I told you, like the layup lines, yes, we do it, but I really try to avoid it. And I would do those advantage drills, those one-on-one, finish with contact. I would do them in a warm-up, even before stretching. If we do so, I do think it is very important, if you have the opportunity, that you can ask your players to be a bit warmed up before the official start of practice. If you have some space in the gym, behind the baseline, off court, in the hallway, I don't know what, to do already a little warm-up, it can really help your practice. On top of that, what I like to do in warm-ups is start with a game right away. And actually, that's an idea which I stole from Greg Popovich, who also likes to do it with San Antonio. For example, a warm-up for me could be that we start playing 5-on-5 full court right away, but with a couple of rules. For example, we could ask that the players, that they cannot dribble and they can only hold the ball in their hands for 1 second. So actually what you see then is players that go live right away, 5-on-5 full court with a high pace and with a certain flow. Because whenever a player holds the ball in his hands for longer than 1 second, coach blows his whistle, and that's a turnover. And when would I do such a layup? Well, it is when I want to work on the flow of my offense. You will see that it is a fun way to have a warm-up, but also one way where both teams, where they have to share the ball like crazy. The ball is moving from one hand to the other every single second. And that warm-up, that for me would set the tone for the whole practice in which we want to find our flow. If at the end of practice we're playing 5-on-5 with our set plays and with dribbles and so on, I would try to stress the fact that we still are looking for that same flow of the warm-up, if that makes sense.
Dr. Meurs, this is my question. Could you kindly, given your extensive experience in the game of basketball, could you kindly give us 5 qualities that a basketball coach should possess in order to be successful? Thank you.
Yes. I think it starts with one, and it's an important one. First of all, I think you have to be crazy about basketball. But whoever is crazy enough to be on a day off listening to my webinar for more than an hour, I guess you're already qualified for that quality. You have to be crazy about the game of basketball. Otherwise, you will never keep up. Because if you want to do it well, you're being a basketball coach, it will absorb so much time. And like the game of basketball is evolving so fast. If you only see how much the game has changed over the last 10 years, then it also means that by definition, you as a coach, you have to refine your basketball philosophy continuously. So crazy about the game, that's one thing. Second thing is you have to love your players. Same thing, otherwise you won't keep on. If you want to coach a team for a whole season, then with those players, you will be in the same boat for one season. And you will have to work every single day with them. And in good times and in bad times. Whenever you win 5 games in a row, then it's easy. Then then everybody is having fun. You too, as a coach. It gets a bit challenging when you lose 5 times in a row. And I think you won't keep up if you don't have that love to make your players progress day in, day out. Thirdly, of course, very important is there's a lot of knowledge about the game. And you have to know your X's and O's. You have to know which drills and which set plays to select for your team. I do think that nowadays, and it will only get bigger towards the future, that we also have to know the basics about basketball analytics. Like it has been growing a lot in the NBA over the past years. I think it's a trend that will also come to Europe and Asia and the different areas. Next, you have to be flexible. Like I've been lucky to coach in different countries as a professional coach. Every country gives you a different situation. Every country has a different culture, off court, but also on court. And probably you can also say that every single team has its own characteristics. The committee is different, the personalities, the characters are different. And every single time you have to be flexible to work towards the same goal. If I have to select one more, I would say manage your team. Like find a way to all go for the same goal. And you have to manage the superstars of your team that think that they are Michael Jordan. You have to manage number 12 on the bench, who is not always happy because he doesn't play enough minutes. And you have to manage the whole bunch of players. And that's an important quality too. And then I think I mentioned the 5 most important skills according to me.
Thank you, Dr. Meurs. Pochaya?
Yes. Again, would like to thank Coach for spending his afternoon with the Filipino coaches and with the coaches in the region. I know we have some coaches from Singapore and Indonesia, I see, in attendance. And I would like to thank you from us here in Asia for spending your time. I hope that you and your family stay safe there in Belgium. And as we were talking earlier, good news for you guys that you're gonna start school soon. So we hope we start school on time also here in the Philippines.
Yes, once more, thank you all. If the listeners have any questions, you will find my contact details on my website or on social media. I do wish all the listeners, wherever you are in the world, stay safe, stay home, stay healthy, and thanks a lot for your attention.
So again, visit Coach Meurs' website, and he gave us a free access to his book. So again, register his website and his newsletter, and it's Coach. Can you show that slide again? Your first slide.
Yes, of course.
Oh, it's there, right there. So his contact, his website's there. He's under his name. There you go.
You mean this one?
Yeah. Anyway,
Here you see my website.
Yes. www.pascalmeurs.com. And again,
yes,
thank you so much. And for those that are staying, we can, we got some items that we put on bidding that I mistakenly put the ending to tonight. So probably we can extend the ending until we do the bidding on Saturday. But we can also do some live bidding, maybe after the session of Coach Ryan, which immediately follows at 8. So again, have your players also for the last session for tonight. I know before they go to bed, it will be a good session to for some skills and to get their skill development going. We will have Coach Ryan Goodman, so a known skills coach, and we will be joined by probably the most popular lady basketball player in Christiana Di Maunahan, or I call her Dandalet, who started with Hoop Coaches International, which used to be Swooshers Basketball 10 years ago. So it's also a good session for us. So you can follow her on her Instagram and on her YouTube channel. So that's again, for everyone, invite your players to watch the last session, and also of course for you coaches, so that you can apply to your other players who cannot join in that last session. Again, Coach, thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
God bless. And to all attendees, again, we'll see you at 8. We can go earlier and talk to Coach for a while, and we can exchange ideas, and then we'll take it off from there. Thank you. Stay safe. Coach, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Stay in touch. You have
we
my
will.
details if you need something else. So thanks again for the opportunity. Stay safe.
Right,
Bye-bye.
stay safe.